I work with the local authority water programme in the Western region in the communities team. Before I get into any of that detail, I just wanted to recognise the work that Anne, the Tiny Towns team, and William and Dana, because I've been more peripherally involved in this, and I haven't in the last month seen a lot, so it's lovely to walk down the mall today and see what the concept has turned into through all your hard work, and it's now there. So well done. It's been a lot of hard work. So LawPro works as a shared service for all of the local authorities around Ireland to support the implementation of the Water Framework Directive. And there's two key functions. One is a coordination piece in terms of the catchment signs, where we work with the relevant agencies and implementing bodies around the country and the local authorities to coordinate our water management and our natural water function. And the other piece is public participation. And Article 14 of the Water Framework Directive recognises that without effective public participation, that the directive will fail. And so, because of that particular objective of ours, we were really delighted to be supporting this project and be a partner in the project. It really embodies everything that one might consider when we think about managing our surface waters and the issues that come up in terms of the social piece and the community piece and the knowledge transfer. And I think it's Westport is probably my favourite town in Ireland. We have a home not that far from here, and I spent a lot of my youth there, and I love how aesthetically beautiful it is and how tidy it is. But as a scientist, I recognise where there can be improvements. And I think it's really important that as part of that conversation, we recognise all the different perspectives and all the different priorities that there are in the community and society. And for example, here in Westport, obviously the aesthetic is very important, and that's important to everyone. And people have different kind of visions of what that aesthetic might be. There's our climate change and our flood risk piece, so it's very important to consider that. Our waterways are obviously a recreational resource for anglers, for kayakers, for people just going for a walk and looking at them. And of course then there's the ecological piece, the ecosystem piece. So we need to look at all those things in the round, and I suppose build consensus in the community about how we manage our waters and what we do going forward, and that needs to be informed by science. And I think that's really what this project hopes to do, which is so positive. I think as well, we have to recognise that the channel here in the town is something like the antiquarian, and it was a very common site around this part of the world and the UK in Victorian times. They loved the planting and the reflection of the trees, and our waterways were under much less pressure in the round at those times. So the impact of the physical changes that have happened in the Mall here probably were less relevant. They probably had a smaller impact in the round than they do today. So those physical changes that have happened, we need to think about how we can help the river to function better. Yeah. So.
I think there's an interesting point when we compare it historically as well, is that one body were responsible for making those changes, a private entity. In the case of Westport, quite a lot, it was Westport House made those changes, and now because we are in a more democratic society and we have things like the Waterways Framework and the Irish Convention and everything, it's important to put it through. So Waterways, the framework is an EU directive, the Irish Convention is also a European convention, both of which dictate that communities and public participants have a right to have a say in the conversation of the future of their environments and their communities. And that's the backbone of these projects, because while we know that has to happen, it takes quite a lot of steps from conversations like this to enforce any sort of change. So it's why we bring lots of different groups together to make sure they all feel seen and heard, and then what the compromises are. Because the more people you bring in, the harder compromises get. So maybe we move on to Elizabeth, who can talk about climate action in Lewisburg locality, who are